Just a little introduction before we get it going. This wants to be it's a behind the scene. The film is still in production, but we really wanted to be here at this amazing, and special, and prestigious event, and share with all the filmmakers and the community of filmmakers how it is possible to create high-quality CG films working all remotely. We are kind of even more special because we have no budget, and we have been working with 350 artists from 35 countries for the last 7 years, since the story actually started to spin in my head. And we just wanted to be here to share that. If you have a budget, if you're lucky to have a studio and do have a budget, it is even more possible. It's not easy to do it on a volunteer basis, but if we are doing it, you can do it with a budget for sure. So we think that's definitely a great possibility that it's the future for our industry. So let's move on. Co-producers are Pixel Cartoon, Valerio Studio, and Hibiscus Media. And as of last year, UNICEF Italy joined us, supporting us, and I have a little statement for you from them.
UNICEF Italy supports the animated short film Mila for the powerful universal language conceived by artists from around the world, for the excellent quality of the work, and above all, because the story of this little girl from Trento, who survived the bombings of World War II, represents all those children who across the ages and around the planet are in danger. Children forced by war to endure separation, flight, violence, poverty, and exploitation. As with Mila, these children did not have a choice, and it is up to us to protect them and help them grow healthy and free.
We are very lucky to have a lot of sponsors that during the years joined us to help in various ways, softwares or man-hours, media support. The View recently also joined, so thank you so much, Maria Elena, for believing in us. So first of all, the story is the most important thing and the original idea, of course, so why Mila? As many of you probably during the years have grown up with stories from your parents or grandparents from World War II. And I was always really interested in hearing, those stories that my mom, especially, and my grandmother told me. My mom is actually here with us today, so if you want to talk to her later, she'll be happy to. She's busy taking pictures now, so. Anyway, so one story in particular that she always told me, how she felt as a kid in the middle of the bombings in Trento, in Italy, and she was like 4 or 5, and how she felt powerless and totally scared, and when the bombs would arrive, she would freeze and not be able to do anything. And I always thought, how can kids cope with the stress of conflicts? And when I had a chance 7 years ago to do a film, I really thought really deeply at what I wanted to say, and this is the story that I really wanted to talk about. And it's not conventional to do a film about war with animation, but I think that's the strength of Mila and the secret of attracting so many people to work on it for free, on their free time, because it has such a strong theme. So I think it's my, it's our actually secret on how we were able to keep it going and constantly attract people and sponsors to help us out. So of course, say that, how easy is it to do it, Valerio?
Hi, everybody. Yes, it's not easy at all. We have to face many challenges in a remote studio. Of course, we have to build a structure that works for everybody around the world. So we have to create, of course, a communication, first of all, a communication between all the artists around the world. So, of course, the first and most diffuse communication system is the emails that everybody can send. I have counted around 20,000 emails just between the supervisor, me and Cinzia, and in these past years. But I think that we reach around 500,000 emails exchanged between us. And of course, there are more modern, let's say, modern systems like video chat and Skype calls that can become easier to exchange also some pictures or videos, or to like Slack, like you can see here. Slack is a kind of chat system that lets you create also some channels. Each one can be a shot of the movie, and in that you can share movies, you can share pictures, you can chat about, the supervisor can advise with artists and so on. Of course, we have a tracker, some document, or more documents. We use Google Documents to keep track of every part of the steps of the production. But sometimes we use also Shotgun. Shotgun is a software that it's a review and production tracking tool that can handle all the tasks that we can share with artists. This kind of collaboration is possible around the world because we can say that Mila, poor baby, she never sleeps because around the world we have people in Australia, we have in Mexico, we have in Italy, we have in the United Kingdom, United States, all around the world. So we have to keep track of the time zones, and so we have to sometimes in the morning I wake up and it's kind of a nightmare because I find 100 emails of a chat they exchanged during the night, my night, their day, and so it's pretty difficult to handle everything. We have, of course, a file server that is located in Trento, here in Italy, because we need a real location for all the files. But this is shared through the cloud. This project couldn't be possible 10 years ago. Now with fiber channels and internet connection, very quick internet connection, we can do it. But a few years ago, it would have been not possible. And another challenge that we face is software compatibility, because we need all the artists to use possibly the same software to share all the files, the production files. Sometimes, since they are students, and we welcomed many students during this project. Sometimes they use student versions of the software, so we have to import these files or export some FBX, for example, files to exchange the models of the production. So we have many software, as you can see from this slide. Mainly we use Maya for the 3D environments. but many modelers used also 3ds Max or Blender. Of course, the Adobe Suite for the 2D part of the production, but also Mari for 3D painting for some users when textures are involved, and also ZBrush for the modeling part.
Also, Arnold with Solid Angle.
Of course, Arnold is the main renderer of the production. We started with Mental Ray, but after a few years, we switched to Arnold because it's way quicker, faster, and with super quality.
And also because they gave us 30 licenses for free, so that's a good reason, right?
That's the main reason.
All right, so let's move on to art direction. We have tons of stuff here. There is not much time, so I'm going to go very quick. We treated Mila, even if we didn't have a dime, as it was a proper, like, real production, so at the highest possible level. After 20 years in the States in the animation industry, I've been very lucky to know so many friends and colleagues that jump on board and help people that have had tons of experience. So that's why we were able to keep the quality, as you will see later, so high. Okay, so first of all, the storyboard, that is the blueprint, of course, of any project, and then from there, color keys were created on the different sequences. We have six sequences. 2 are dreams, and the rest is, reality check, war time. These paintings, we start in the main plaza in Trento. I don't know if you're familiar. It's a beautiful plaza, Trento. So, and it looked just the same when, in 1943. And these are just explorations at the beginning of the lighting and the colors and what we wanted to do, how to differentiate the dreams from war. So, of course, for war, I wanted to have a more desaturated bluish green type of lighting and coloring. These are color keys of when Mila on the second sequence, you see a little bit of the CG part of this. When she wakes up and she was dreaming on the first dream, she wakes up and she realizes that she's in the middle of war. She's all alone. She just lost her mother a few days before. And from here, the 2 core directors, Richard Smythman and Alexandra Kavalova, created paintings, some color keys, but also some paintings of the important moments to inform lighting departments, of course, of what they wanted to see and we wanted to see up on the screen. Of course, as you know, the storyboard is always the go-to reference for anyone. These were created by Lorenzo Paoli, some color keys, color scripts of the sequences, trying to find the right colors and tone, always to very important artwork to inform the lighting departments. This is the second sequence, and this sequence will be exclusively shown here for the first time, all rendered and finished, so later on the presentation. A painting from that sequence. Some more on the war. And here is a complete color script. You see how we start kind of happy, the first opening sequence of Dream, and then we go into like more, toned down and dark and colder colors for the war, to the candlelit sequence where Mila and there is a woman that saves her, and they kind of saves each other. The woman saves Mila physically, but Mila saves the woman psychologically, and they find each other. That's what happens, the bonding that happens on the 4th sequence, the candlelit sequence. And then there is another dream, and the last sequence is more of a normal kind of lighting and coloring where they find each other, and finally a little bit more of a balance. So this is how color supports story, and they go all together along with shapes and all of that. Character design was super lucky to have Luis Granet, our main character designer, that also worked in many big studios. This was the first sketch. He brought me tons of sketches, and when I saw this one, I said, that's Mila. And that was our first sketch of the girl, and then the visual department started to explore on how to make her come to life. This, of course, because, you know, when they say, okay, you do your own project, okay, keep it simple, a couple of characters, 1 locations, of course, I'm not going to listen to that. So we have 10 characters, multiple locations. I don't know, did you ever count? I don't want to count. Don't let me, okay. So, and, but it's a film that wants to explore a real moment, even if it's with animation. So I needed to have characters to fill the background and give us the sense of terror when the attacks would come. If Mila was alone, it would have not been the same thing. So I needed the characters to support what was happening. We have tons of these, but I'll spare you. Basically, for each of the characters, we went through you know, the coloring style and the texturing, and the art director and her team were looking into details and researching 1943 designs of the clothing, of course, because it's all designed to be true to that time. And each of the characters got, you know, turnarounds and props designs and all of that. And to add on to the difficulties, of course, because I like to challenge my team, we had 2 looks. The dream look and the war one. So each of the characters got 2 sets of textures, and you'll see later, same thing for all the buildings. Most of all the buildings, you have the non-destructive and the destructive version. So it's kind of doubling up the work for everybody. So production design, because we were starting from a real plaza and a real town, Trento, of course, references are a key, even if you then want to build on top of that and create your own design of the city. Anyway, you start from the real thing. So I divided up the main plaza onto north and south, and I assigned a letter to each of the buildings. And when I went back to Trento a few years ago, when I went into the plaza, I was seeing these letters on top of the... No, I'm not joking. No, it's true.
Luckily or unluckily, I live in Trento, so every time I go to, my head spins around.
So again, we looked at tons and tons of references from the time, of course, and even before. I'm just going to show you one slide. And from that, those references, of course, the production designer and his artists were creating the same, designing those buildings, but with our look. So pushing the proportions, making it a bit, shorter than reality or larger than reality or whatever, but just to play with it. We didn't want to reconstruct Trento in a very cold kind of architectonical, way. We wanted it to still feel like animation and being cartoony. And then from there, of course, the art department was taking the drawings and creating paintings to be used for the texture artists and the modelers that would follow their lead on the designs of the buildings, of course. This is some of the initial designs for the interior of the house of the woman that saves Mila, where we have the fourth sequence of the candlelit sequence. We then simplified it a little bit. This is the exterior of the house. It's a hero house because it's an important house. So sometimes you have to select the hero props and give them extra love because the camera will be close to that. So you have hero props and not non-hero props. Then we ended up simplifying the interior a little bit. From that sketch, Alexandra worked on top of that, and this is pretty similar to what we have now. We eventually actually got rid of the second room, just to keep it very simple. It's just a character piece. There is no dialogue. It's all about what happens emotionally between the characters. So I really wanted to take the noise out of this sequence as much as possible. So we simplified it even more. And so we have a bunch of here of images now for modeling, texturing, and look development. So this is the hero, speaking of heroes, hero prop. It's where we started the first sequence, and Mila is on top of the carousel spinning. And the carousel represents kind of the childhood and what happens to it because of war. When she wakes up on the second sequence, that carousel, you'll see it later, will be totally destroyed. And represents, is very symbolic on what happens to a kid, basically, during war. Maybe Valerio is going to talk a little bit about modeling.
Yes, this probably is the most complex model we have to build. And as you can see, it's also animated. So we had to build also rigs, that kind of skeletons we use inside, usually inside characters, but in this case, inside this carousel. We had to build this in two versions, one with these colors, and in this second version is destroyed. So we have to build double textures and double models. You can see in the next, this picture, you can see the step that is the UV unwrapping of the texture, that is a kind of flattening all the model, flattening all the model on a flat surface where you can paint all the textures. This is the texture of the carousel. And in this small animation, we can see the transition from the flat to the 3D gray version to the wireframe, and then the textured version. We had around 500 props to build for this short film, and the textures were all very precise. There was a meticulous work on them, because sometimes we need them to be very close to the camera, so we need to be very pixel precise. And in some other cases, we are far away, so we can be less meticulous. But it's very important for the rendering time of this project, because as you know, we are not a big company, so we have like 20 computers in a small render farm. So we have to spare on the rendering time. Some frames can be rendered in, let's say, 15 minutes. Some others, like you will see at the end of the show, the teaser trailer, needed about 20 hours per frame. So it's complex, and we have to spare on loading and rendering times.
So, like Valerio said, we had a lot of props. See, this is the main fountain in Trento, in the main plaza, and in reality, the top statue is less big, is smaller. But we wanted to push the proportions and really make it our version of Trento, so we kind of had fun with that. As I said, based on the drawings that the designers did, we modeled a bunch of, I think it's like about 30 houses. Some, I call them jolly, like we could use them here and there, but most are just houses as they are in the plaza. And the city, because they're going to travel through the town from the plaza through a bridge and to another part of the city, so that they actually cross the city. We have a lot of course, being Italy, churches that we had to do to to represent Trento. And here are quickly some of the houses. If you go in the main plaza, you'll recognize these houses. And again, we had versions for most of them of war and non-war. And some other churches. It was, I mean, I think the models were really into destroying houses. They were all, I always had a list of people that wanted to do destruction stuff. I don't know why, it's really attracting, I guess. Good, I mean, I was happy. We have tons of that. But this is the hero house I showed you before from Sequence 4000. And then, of course, modeling. The modeling supervisor is Philippe Brochu. He's been with me since the very beginning. Great guy, and he supervised all the modeling for the project. This is our Mila with a scarf that is driving everybody crazy, but it's fun to have. So really,
for the simulation of the tissue, of course, and then it's very.
It's very
hairy,
fuzzy, and
hairy.
yeah, they asked me what type of scarves you want. I really want a scarf that gives the sense of warmth, so it has to be very, comfy. I said, oh, great, okay. So,
thank you, Cinzia.
So again, for building cars, I had a long list of waiting list to build stuff. It was fun to research of all the 1943's vehicle and push a little bit the proportions. The bomber, so we really looked at a lot of bombers, and we didn't want to be political or point fingers or do anything. It's just a film about kids in the middle of war. We picked World War II because it's symbolically the war of wars. For the bomber, when it came to build the bomber, I really wanted the designers to come up with something that was a blend between all the bombers from World War II. I didn't want to be, look like a German or American or whatever. So the only thing that is true to that day, when Trento was bombed, is the 91, because 91 bombers bombed the city that day. So, like you said, we had gazillion. I just picked a few props, and again, as you can see, a lot of research behind of things that were used at the time, of course. This was designed by a student, and I really liked it, so we made it a 3D model that is in the house. A few more vehicles. And the market, we started the first sequence with the marketplace. Everybody's happy, it's fun, it's beautiful, and it's just Mila remembering the good old times. And unfortunately, as many times happens, markets are bombed, so our market get bombs too. So we have tons of market props that get the double design, of course, before and after the bombing. This is a hero prop because they're going to travel through town with the bicycle. That's the red bicycle. And then the illumination also, we looked at all the illumination of the era, so interior and both exterior illumination of the city. So I think it's time for Valerio.
Yeah, matte painting is a crucial part of the production because sometimes we have to spare on modeling because it's too difficult to model something with too many details. So we use matte painting. Matte paintings are these big, huge, sometimes 60,000 pixels or so. Huge paintings done in Photoshop that can be projected on simple geometry. So as in this example, we see this wonderful matte painting by Florence Durante, that is one of our lead matte painters. And as you can see, there is a detail, a wonderful detail of the object. We cannot zoom in more than this, but we could see that every object in the plaza has many pixels resolution. We have to build scripts with Nuke, for example. This is our compositing software, and use these scripts to project the image over simple 3D models. And with this, we can spare on the modeling part of the project. As you can see, the models you see in this image are pretty simple. We don't see, for example, windows in some houses, or sometimes this image, like the fountain in the plaza, is just projected on a card, on a flat card, because we don't need to move the camera very much. And in this animation here, we can see that we can move the camera and we can go around. Start.
Is it starting?
Okay, we can move the camera, but a little bit, because if we move around the object, we can see the distortion of the image, because of course this is not all real 3D, but it's just a projection. So as you can see, the frontal part of the image is perfectly textured, and you can see all the details. If you just move a little bit around the image, you lose all the textures. This is important because so we can create little camera movements that resemble a real 3D camera movement in space. You can see from behind it's all crazy, it's a mess. But if you look from the front, like here, everything seems much better. And now we can see in the next movie the final camera movement. You see that there is an idea of 3D, but it's not all 3D. That's the main reason why we use this kind of projection technique.
So layout, it's a really important department because it translates the storyboard to basically real 3D movement and camera work. So I worked closely with Francisco Pacheco, the supervisor, layout supervisor, and Pepe Valencia is the DP on the project. The first sequence was particularly tricky because Mila is on the carousel and she keeps spinning around, so the camera is always with her spinning. And then as we go into the second one, I really wanted cameras that were kind of hectic and kind of handheld type of approach because of war. I really wanted to give a sensation of stress and panic, and you know, that Mila is going through, Mila and all the other characters, of course. So we have now, here is a little movie of Francisco working on the beginning of the second sequence when Mila wakes up and realizes she is in the middle of craziness. We have a little section of that. Some shots are final, some are in progress, but just to give you a sense of where we are going. We didn't add the music here because we wanted to keep the surprise for later. It's coming up. Okay, some lighting. These are just the screenshots of final lighting. Some are still in the works, but kind of final almost. This is the plaza, the opening, the beginning sequence. The lighting supervisor is Francesco Giraldini, great guy, originally from Italy, as you can understand from the name. He's in the US now. And even the lighting, of course, as we go from happy beginning, dream, it reflects all the paintings that have been done, so with very warm colors. And as we transition into war, of course, we start to change all of that. And lighters have been working very closely with the art directors and myself, of course, to reflect what was needed to support the story. This is the interior of the house when Mila comes in, and as you can see from her attitude, she's really freaking out, and she doesn't know this woman, and she's like lost. So the fourth sequence is, I think, is one of our best sequences because it's really all the work, emotional work between the two characters. This is I called the swing machine Luisa. It was my grandmother's name, and in her honor, she has a prop with her name. I think she will love that.
Here you can see a few passes that are used to composite the images. Of course, the rendering with Arnold is not done just with one pass, but we need to create many passes that keep in mind about the diffusion of light, specular highlights, reflections, and so on, and we composite it together. So it's a pretty long process, but at the end it gives a full real image like we want to.
Okay, so as everything else, design and art, animation, supports the story to create the best story, the best way to tell the Mila story. One of the most important elements is music. Let me call out Flavio Gargano, our composer. Can you stand up, Flavio, please, 1 second? And so we wanted to show you a sequence that is for the first time we're showing to anyone, so please.
We finished it tonight.
Of course. As you know, I mean, if you're in the industry, you know it's always finishing the night before. So we want to show you first the very first rough that Emanuela Cozzi did. She storyboarded the whole film. And the music, it's Flavio finding at the piano, finding the melody and the music that he wanted to, write for this sequence. So the first is rough, both visually and musically, and then after that you're going to see the final with the final music. Of course, the music it's composed the computer for now. But in 2 weeks, we're going to record the entire Mila score with the Haydn Orchestra in Bolzano, and they also came on board as sponsors. And they're also all, I think we have to add 54 more volunteers to the credit list. It's going to be like a half-an-hour credit list, but it's fine. Because they're all going to play for 3 days for free and record with Flavio and Valerio, and everybody's going to go up there, and it's going to be really nice. So here it is. Can we kill the lights, please? at this point, you know me, I like things complicated. So the end credits, I really wanted to wrap up the story with the end credits. And as my mom actually with her family during the bombings at night, so my grandparents with 3 kids with the bicycles escaped the city and went up to the mountains as the city was bombed. They were lucky in a sense because they found a good place and a good house where to stay for 2 years in the mountains. And after the bad experience of the city, it actually was a nice time for the kids up there. Very simple, very rural, And I wanted to put that into the end credits. So the end credits are 2D animation because I come from 2D. When I started, I loved 2D animation, and I wanted the end credits to be in 2D. So it's a graphic representation and simplified representation of Mila. And it has a lot of the experiences that my mom had during those years. Even if the war was still happening, it was kind of happier years because they were up in the mountains and far away from all the craziness. So that's kind of reflected in this. So this is the graphic representation of Mila for the end credits. Just have a few slides. Actually. Maybe Sergio is in the house. I don't know if he's here. There he is, one of the designers of the end credit. Alexandra Kavalova did this. I think it was one of the first paintings she did, just to find the look, and I really fell in love with this kind of old illustration type of feel. So we're gonna we went this way with it. We explored the same process, of course, as for the 3D film. You go through the end credits with finding the right coloring and lighting and mood and all of that. And then actually Alexandra boarded the end credits. It's pretty long. All the leads and supervisors are going to be in this. And of course, we couldn't put 350 names that like this because we stay here 20 more years. So the rest are going to be rolling credits. All right, so we have a little sections of the credits. They're all in colors. It's just key frame animation, so you see it's stepped. But you can get a sense of where we're going with it. The music is always Flavio Gargano. And he goes on. I like the dramatic finale. So that was the recording of the trailer, but we're gonna have that experience and much more in 2 weeks. Flavio is already counting down the moments, the seconds to be with the orchestra. It's gonna be great, I think. So thank you from 350 artists and Mila, of course. Yeah, so if you are interested in following us, of course, we are everywhere as Mila Film, so please, find us. Also, let me say that it's not just the people working on Mila that keep it alive, but also all the fans, and we have a lot of fans around the world. We have a special one today, Cecilia Giusti, where are you? Come on, stand up. There she is. She wrote me last year a beautiful, moving, incredible letter about her grandfather's experience in World War II. And she's an artist and she creates beautiful mosaics. And after, if you want to take a look, she brought a mosaic inspired by Mila. And this is, the beauty of Mila. It's kept alive from people that are not even in the team, because they follow us and they believe in the story and in the theme, the message that we want to talk about.